Okay, Mr. Federer is white, e4. Great opening move, right? So if it's good enough for white, it's certainly good enough for black. Knight f3 to attack the unguarded pawn. And knight c6. Gee, this looks like a normal chess game. Bishop c4, attacking the very weak f7 pawn. And, which we have now, the Berlin defense, right?
No, that's not the Berlin. Bishop b5.
Yes, that's right. It would be a6 here. Wouldn't it? Well, bishop b5, a6, then a4, then b5, then here, and then knight f3.
No, that is bishop b5, knight f6. That's the Berlin.
Now, after here, what should he do about this unguarded pawn?
Well,
Should he castle and entice, knight can play, and then rook over, and you're going to get the pawn back with d4? Or do what he did now, which is, yes, exactly. He played fried liver. Fried liver with mashed potatoes and onions, because I like mashed potatoes and onions.
that's not the fried liver. That is. No, it isn't. White has to sack the knight for it to be a fried liver.
Okay. Well, what's the only move black has?
d5.
d5 is correct. You have to block off the bishop. Pawn takes.
With this setup, though.
And
Knight a5.
attacking this bishop, and the bishop can't stay on this diagonal because it's going to be traded. You could check, I suppose. Pawn takes, pawn takes, pawn takes, bishop back. So
But then there's a lot of open.
well, there's a lot of counterplay, but at least you're getting rid of the fried liver attack for the moment.
Yeah.
All right, so white's choice. Take my bishop, and I'll just have a nice center pawn, I guess. It's okay, right?
Yeah.
Now you attack the knight.
Get out of there.
I'm going back to attack your e5 pawn. Bishop d6. I want to castle and get my king very safe. What's the point of that move? To win the knight with a check and then just pick up the knight. Let's just castle and take away that plan. And forcing the knight to take the bishop. I don't think the knight has any other choice but to take the bishop, right?
No, frankly, he doesn't.
Taking and taking.
That's a weird pawn structure.
That's very interesting. It's like one of those like crazy, like a B2 bomber with an extension on the front. See, like,
Well, you've got,
it's like the laser.
actually it's pretty strong. I mean, you're guarding d4 with this pawn. Of course, this is a backwards pawn now, right?
Very backward.
right. B4 bomber with the laser charging up.
All right, so if I'm black, he's got to break up the pawn formation, so c5,
Quite frankly, I would have played knight.
a3.
Yay! More pawns.
Aha! Let's attack in the center. I like that move a lot.
Yeah.
Knight has like nowhere to go except for the bad square.
Yeah, d2, which blocks the dark squared bishop.
And
could
also the
reroute
other knight.
You could, yeah.
And now you are protecting the pawn twice.
And also threatening e3.
Yes, pushing. That's a very dangerous push. Very dangerous push.
Castle.
They heard you. White does castle. See, this is an easy game. Okay, we have, let's take a look at this.
No time to destroy the battering ram.
1, 2, 3,
I
4.
like the battling ram.
It says, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 moves to mate
For who?
for black.
Bishop takes h2.
Yes, that's correct. That's the first move of the sequence. Bishop takes h2 check is correct.
You don't. You,
King takes bishop. Yes, he was not convinced that it was there, unfortunately for him.
knight g4.
King takes, knight g4 check.
should have gone to H1 while we had the
Yeah,
chance.
maybe.
Well, he came out because he realizes this is mate, queen here and mate, and there's no way to stop it, so he had to come out. That finally he saw.
Queen D6.
Yeah, why didn't he take the...
Queen d6, check. Pawn blocks.
EF3 on passant.
Pawn takes pawn on passant, check.
I love on passant checks.
Just take the knight already.
I can't take the knight.
Well, you're in trouble when your most active piece is...
He's the king. The king is the most advanced piece, okay?
E3 checkmate.
And we have mate in 1, guys.
E3 checkmate.
Rook e3 mate.
Now we have a mate with a knight, queen, and rook, and bishop.
Bishop.
Well, the bishop is protecting the knight, so it's not indirectly. So the thing is that you have a knight and a rook mate, and the dark squares are covered by the queen.
But technically the bishop is participating in the mate.
Yep.
Very slightly, but still sitting at home with a laser.
Well, let's take a look at the reason that black could do this. You have 7 pieces to start the game. 5 of black's pieces were in the game, and only 3 of white's. The rook, the bishop, and the knight. So you had 5 against 3.
But the knight wasn't really in the game, and the queen never got to go.
Well, these 4 never moved at all. This one actually got to play a little bit.
Yeah.
But 5 against 3, which means you can sacrifice 2 and still be even.
Too many pawn moves.
Look at
Yeah,
White's pawn.
yeah. Look at all these pawns here.
It didn't get destroyed, but they didn't get to you.
It didn't get destroyed, but all of these pieces could have been developed instead of these pawn pushes.
It's like you have a. You could have.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you don't develop your pieces, this is what will happen to you. Development is the key. If you don't get your knights and bishops out in the first 8 to 10 moves in castle, this is what will happen to you. Do not let this happen to you. Develop your pieces early.
Castling doesn't really matter as much as developing your pieces.
That's correct. It doesn't. It does not. You're absolutely right. Okay, let's try another one.
Yeah, what would have happened if you had made king H1 instead?
It would have been mate in 2. Queen up and then queen down, and there's no way out. That he finally saw.
Before taking the
Yeah, you know, yeah, king. Yeah,
when
was
black
probably
sacked the
favorite,
bishop
right?
instead of taking it, then
but
white.
then since his bishop is there, he can move it back and then start the attack.
Okay, let's take a look. Vienna 1913. D4, D5. Yay, almost normal chess.
Normal until move 20.
Knight C3. Knight F6.
Who's playing who?
And E4. An interesting move. Pawn takes.
This is a variant of.
It's like a Budapest gambit. Pawn takes. Bishop out. Attack the unguarded pawn.
Isn't that a variant of the Black Maradima gambit?
Let's attack the queen. Uh-oh. F3, bad move. Pawn takes pawn. Not good idea to push the pawns around the king till after your castle.
But white would still be okay. Just one down.
Knight takes. E6, developing the bishop probably, and he wants to castle, I'm sure.
Never play F3 in Bughouse. Or anywhere for that matter.
Bishop pinning the knight to the queen.
It's rare you have it in the game.
C5. I don't know if I would play that right away. I think bishop out to take away the pin and castle. That would have been my move. That would have been my move. I just really want to get my king out of the center.
Well, I mean, the idea is pawn takes pawn, and then you trade queens off the board. And you castle back.
All right. White gets to castle first.
Hey, no fair.
Oh, bishop takes knight here.
Takes.
Queen takes.
Queen takes.
And you're threatening a mate here if this knight moves.
Also bishop d5.
Queen takes pawn check.
It's called.
King over.
You win a free piece.
You could take this bishop.
But then queen takes
That's a bad
b7.
move.
Queen takes b7. I said,
Yeah, but the bishop could have moved to b5 and checked the king.
no, he wasn't checked.
He develops first. Interesting.
Why doesn't he just...
Well, he's
Take.
Because he
blocking
needs
the
to
check.
keep his queen on the knight.
Yeah, because I think bishop takes, pawn takes, queen takes, and you're threatening mate and the rook.
Queen takes c4, queen takes b7, you win the rook.
You should have moved the king on b3 too, or moved the rook over to get it up to d1.
Well, he attacks the queen and he says, you could still take my bishop, I'm not saving it. And black says, well, gee, thanks a lot.
I would have played queen d4, to be honest with you.
Now bishop takes knight. And instead of taking back,
e5, yay! The queen gets to save the f7 pawn.
now the queen is guarding f7.
So no more fireworks.
Not yet.
Take some stuff, dude. I want to see fireworks.
It's not 4th of July yet. See, that's the symbol.
White saves the bishop from the pawn.
Dude, I got 4th of July.
The queen comes back to protect the king.
I shall defend my king.
The knight shoots in to try a family fork.
Unfortunately,
Queen, rook, and king is called the family fork.
unfortunately, there will be no families to
The family fork, you're forking the queen, the king, and the rook. It's called the family, right?
Rook c8.
Yes, rook c8 is the correct move.
Now there are no families to fork.
Nope. However, white says, I'm going to give you a royal fork.
Oh, black resigns.
Oh, I see what he's doing.
Rook takes knight.
Queen takes c6 check. Queen takes c6 check. Time for some fun.
Queen takes c6 check.
The deadly move.
Rook takes queen.
Rook e8 checkmate. 2 games.
The Morphe mate.
Again. Thank you.
Queen sack, queen sack, queen sack. Look for it, but you can only get away with it because black didn't do what?
Castle.
Thank you. Castling is important. If you don't castle, this is what will happen to you.
Played that game.
This game was played by Ondurka versus, it says amateur. Black was an amateur. In Vienna, 1913.
It is quite too bad for an amateur, lasting past 30 moves.
So, you guys are no longer amateurs because you come to the lecture. You see what the mistakes are of the amateur, so you shouldn't repeat them. Right? You're no longer an amateur. You should be okay. All right, one more and then we're done.
Black didn't do so bad for an amateur, though.
No,
Morphe checkmate.
not too
What?
bad. Okay, oh. All right, so Frank Marshall at the Marshall Chess Club in New York, 1922, versus Mr. Grossman. Marshall is white, Mr. Grossman is black. E4, E6. What's the name of this defense, guys? The Z-Flash. D4, D5, and now white has a whole bunch of choices. Mr. Marshall decided knight to C3. Pawn takes. This is all booked so far. Knight takes pawn. Everything looks so far. Knight to D7. I think this is a mistake. Knight F3. Bishop E7.
Okay, now I think that's
Bishop D3. Developing very quickly, as you can see.
they all like
Knight f6. Knight takes knight check. And knight takes knight.
This way it's going to be a smothered mate.
And instead of castling, Marshall comes in to sink his knight into e5, saying, I love being in your territory. Black says, it won't help you. I'm castling. I'm safe. And Marshall says, so am I.
I wouldn't quite say Marshall is safe.
c5 to break open the center. Pawn takes. And bishop takes.
I know.
I'm not sure where this is.
So what do we have? If we're going to endgame, Black has a 4-3 majority on the king side. Marshall has a 3-2 majority on the queen side. That's if you're looking towards endgame, assuming everything is traded evenly in midgame. But we may not even get to endgame, right? It's very possible we won't get to endgame.
These are the 100 best short games, right?
Okay, so Marshall creates what kind of pin? Relative pin. And Mr. Grossman says, I don't like the pin, so I'll just bring the bishop back. Queen out to pin the bishop can't be developed because you'll lose a pawn.
No, turning it down.
Queen up, let's attack the knight.
And also offer a queen.
And yeah, that's correct. Queen trade is in the works.
Do you think he could have done that earlier?
What, get the queen up and
Yeah,
offer a
instead of
trade?
the bishop?
I think.
I don't know. He probably started seeing, hey, look, this guy's got his rooks connected. All of his minors are developed. My rooks are not connected, and I still have one more minor. I said, I don't like the looks of this. Let me negate the possibility of an attack. So I'll offer a queen trade, because once the queens are off the board, all those great sacrifices that we just saw with queen sacks, you can't sacrifice a queen that's not there. So now the queen is gone.
But then you could still sack rooks and stuff.
Yeah, that's right, and bishops and knights, if you have enough possibilities, but you got to be on the board to do it. You can't be sitting back home watching television, right?
Queen G3.
Well, if you were White, if you were Marshall, would you accept the queen sack?
No.
And he didn't.
That's not a queen sack.
I mean, the queen trade.
Where was the bishop before it was moved back to e7?
It was here. It was here. It was on this, right here. And he came back to take away the pin.
I know, but that's what I don't understand. If he was going to move his queen anyway, why did he move his bishop?
But that doesn't stop checkmate.
Well, because if the bishop's here and the queen moves away, he can take the knight and double the pawns, and the king would be open. He needed something to take back this bishop. See, and if the queen moves away and he takes the knight, let's say the queen moved here or here or here, the bishop's here, he'll just take this. Yes, he can get a bishop for a knight, but then it opens the king.
What if he did Queen G3?
Queen G3? Well, oh, I see. This way? Oh, and then have the knight come back. Oh, but then you just lose the
You
knight.
go to Queen G3.
He's got to protect the knight. He's got to protect.
G3. Yeah, that still protects the knight diagonally.
Okay, let's see. Would he have been able to attack the queen here and then attack this also?
Not with the knight there.
Well, you could play bishop h6. Or you could play bishop takes f6.
Well, since White said no to the queen trade and you're black, what do you think you should do? Should you develop that bishop? How are you going to handle all this stuff? Where do you put the bishop? It's going to be taken.
B7.
Yeah, well, b6 first and then. So he had to do that. Threatening a check. King takes bishop, then rook takes queen. Of course, you will lose a rook and a bishop for a queen and a pawn, which is a really good deal because it's 11 for 9. Because queens are 10 now, right? So
No, that's what I said. 11 for 8, though. Bishop.
But-
Oh, bishop in endgame
4, right. So I always count bishops as 4 anyway. So 11 for 9 would be a good deal. So he just moves off the attack, but he keeps the pressure on here. He's keeping the queen guarding the knight.
I'm feathering you, Queen.
Okay, bishop finally takes knight. Bishop takes bishop.
Now the knight can escape, right?
Or you take the pawn.
Well, now you've set up a battery for mate.
So g6.
So he's got to go g6.
Oh, queen takes a8.
threatening the bishop.
And also the rook that's right there in the corner.
Yeah, and then all you have to do is move the bishop, and you can try to pin down the queen.
Well, let's take a look and see. What else did you win by moving this away?
Well, you win a rook if the bishop moves.
No, you save the knight.
You're on the rook.
You save the knight and attack the bishop at the same time, so you don't have to give up you can just win an exchange. You win a whole rook.
Well, I mean, black can also move the rook away.
But then he gets the bishop.
Well, yeah, so if he saves the rook, he'll just take and say check.
And that's a done game.
Yeah, it's over.
So the knight was like,
So black resigned right at this point.
Well, what I say?
Because he can't save both the, I mean, you could play down a bishop, but not against Marshall for very long. I mean, it's pointless. You know, you're playing Titanic chess. You hit the iceberg. It's over. So what can you do?
goes young last.
You could move the queen to
Well-
E5 or something.
Here, but you lose the rook.
If queen
No, I
d5,
mean, if he
knight takes
moves-
f6.
What?
If queen d5, knight takes f6, check, you win the queen.
Arsenal. Oh.
There's not much you can do about this.
Actually, there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah, so he resigned. You saw it. But you were playing like the best player in the United States at the time. 1920s, Frank Marshall was the U.S. champion. I mean,
You just can't e8.
well, you can do this. I would still take here,
Yeah, me too.
okay? Because then I can come over here and threaten here. I mean, it's just too much. I mean, I don't know if I needed that rook over there. I'd rather get rid of the piece that's protecting the king. It's over. All right, guys. Thank you. We have a tournament that starts in half an hour, and we have another lecture that starts in half an hour in the kids' room on the other side of the chess club.